Her behavior was erratic, Your Honor. She was a danger to herself. We feared for her stability every single day. I sat in that courtroom watching my own mother say those words about me. Her voice cracked at just the right moments. Her hands trembled with practiced precision. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd been holding since before she even took the stand. And the worst part? She was convincing. She was so convincing that the judge leaned forward with genuine concern. My own attorney shifted uncomfortably in his seat, flipping through his notes like a man searching for a life raft in a hurricane. The people in that courtroom looked at me with pity. Not pity for what was being done to me, but pity because they believed I was broken. I watched my father nod solemnly from the gallery. I watched my sister, sitting behind him in her designer blazer, her expression a perfect mask of sisterly worry. They had rehearsed this. All of it. Every tear, every pause, every carefully chosen word. And it was working. The judge nodded sympathetically. My own attorney looked defeated. And that's when I realized they were going to win. Unless I did the one thing they never imagined. My name is Skylar, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a social media manager for a small ethical fashion brand. It's not glamorous. It doesn't come with a corner office or a six-figure bonus. But I love it because the work means something. I've always been the quiet one in my family. The planner. The observer. While everyone else fought to be the loudest voice in the room, I sat in the corner and watched. I noticed things. I remembered things. And I wrote things down. My grandmother, Nana Ruth, understood me. She was the only one who ever did. Before she died, she set up a modest trust fund for me. Not millions. Not life-changing wealth. But enough. Enough for me to pursue a dream I'd carried since I was 19 years old. I wanted to start a community arts program for teenagers. A real space where kids who felt invisible could paint and sculpt and write and perform and be seen. When I told my parents about the plan, my father laughed. Actually laughed. A fantasy, he called it. Wasteful, my mother added, shaking her head like I'd just told her I planned to swim across the Atlantic. My sister, Vanessa, the prized child, the corporate lawyer with the penthouse apartment and the Instagram-perfect life, just smiled with that thin, patronizing smile she'd perfected over 30 years. That's sweet, Skylar. Really sweet. I wasn't rich or glamorous like Vanessa. I didn't have their flashy connections or their ability to command a room. But I had a patience they'd mistaken for weakness. And I had a digital paper trail they didn't know existed. Does your family see your calmness as a weakness? If you've ever been the quiet one in a loud room full of doubters, hit subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what's the dream they told you to give up on? Let's go. 6 years ago, 3 weeks after Nana Ruth's funeral, I got a phone call from my father. His voice was strangely formal, like he was reading from a script. We need to have a family meeting, Skylar. About your grandmother's estate. There are some things we need to discuss. I drove to my parents' house that Saturday morning. The smell of my mother's lavender candles hit me the moment I walked through the front door. It was a scent I used to find comforting. That day, it made my stomach turn. They were all seated at the dining room table. My father at the head. My mother to his right. Vanessa across from her, a manila folder open in front of her like this was a boardroom negotiation. No one offered me coffee. No one asked how I was holding up after losing the woman who raised me more than any of them ever did. My father cleared his throat. Skylar, we've been looking into the terms of your grandmother's trust. It's more complicated than you think. There are tax implications, legal obligations, fiduciary responsibilities. He paused, letting the big words hang in the air like they were supposed to intimidate me. For your own good, we think it's best if we're named co-trustees. Just to help you manage things. I looked at Vanessa. She didn't blink. Skylar, be realistic, my father continued. You get overwhelmed so easily. Remember your anxiety episode in college? We just want to protect you from yourself. That anxiety episode was a panic attack I had during finals week my sophomore year. One panic attack. One. I went to the campus health center, talked to a counselor 3 times, and never had another one. But they'd turned it into a permanent label. A weapon they could pull out whenever they needed to make me feel small. Vanessa leaned forward. It's not that we don't trust you. We just know you. I sat there for a long moment, feeling the weight of their stares. The tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway was deafening. I thought about Nana Ruth. I thought about the letter she'd written me, tucked inside the trust documents, telling me she believed in my dream. And I said, no. My father's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me? No. The trust is in my name. Nana Ruth set it up for me. I don't need co-trustees, and I don't need your help managing it. The room went cold. Not figuratively. I swear the temperature actually dropped. My mother's jaw tightened. Vanessa closed her folder with a snap. My father leaned back in his chair and stared at me for a very long time. 2 weeks later, I was served with legal papers. My parents had petitioned the court for guardianship over my financial affairs. The filing cited ongoing mental health concerns and a demonstrated inability to manage complex financial decisions. They were trying to take my trust by declaring me incompetent. I read those papers sitting on the floor of my apartment with my back against the kitchen cabinets, and I cried until my chest hurt. But the worst was yet to come. The court appointed an evaluator to assess the situation. A psychologist named Dr. Went. She interviewed me once, for 45 minutes. She interviewed my parents for 2 hours. She reviewed a letter from my old college roommate, Tessa, describing erratic behavior and emotional instability during our time living together. I hadn't spoken to Tessa in over a decade. When I finally tracked her down, she told me what happened. My mother had contacted her through Facebook. She'd told Tessa that I was in trouble, that I was spiraling, and that the family needed her help to save me. She asked Tessa to write a letter describing any difficult moments from college. She said it was to help you, Tessa told me, her voice thin with guilt. She said you needed intervention. I didn't know it was for a court case. I'm so sorry, Skylar. Based on my parents' testimony and Tessa's letter, Dr. Went's initial report expressed concerns about my capacity to manage a substantial financial asset independently. The evaluator sided with my parents. I stood in my bathroom that night, staring at my reflection in the mirror, and I barely recognized the woman looking back. Not because I was falling apart, but because I was starting to understand, for the first time, exactly what my family was capable of. The next 2 years were a slow, grinding assault on my dignity. My parents treated the legal process like a siege, and their strategy was simple. Wear me down until I surrendered. The first betrayal came disguised as an olive branch. My mother called to suggest a mediation dinner. Just the family. No lawyers. Let's talk about this like adults, Skylar. We don't want this to be ugly. I should have known better. But some small, stubborn part of me still wanted to believe my parents loved me. So I went. It was a trap. They sat me down at the same dining room table, and my father slid a document across to me. A voluntary transfer of trusteeship. Sign this, and we drop the case today, he said. This has gone on long enough. Your mother can't sleep. Vanessa is stressed. You're hurting this family. I'm hurting the family? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You sued me. My mother reached across and put her hand on mine. Her touch felt like a brand. Sweetheart, the court process is just a formality. If you sign this, it all goes away. You'll still get your money eventually. We just want to make sure it's managed properly. By you. By people who love you. I pulled my hand away. I didn't sign. But I left that dinner feeling hollowed out, like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything warm. The second betrayal was more public and more cruel. It happened at my cousin Jordan's wedding 6 months later. I almost didn't go, but Jordan and I had been close growing up, and I refused to let my parents steal that relationship too. I wore a blue dress that Nana Ruth had bought me for my 30th birthday. I thought wearing it would feel like armor. Instead, it felt like a target. I noticed it within the first hour. The way conversations stopped when I approached. The way aunts and uncles who used to hug me now offered stiff handshakes and quick, pitying smiles. My cousin Diane pulled me aside near the dessert table. Skylar, I just want you to know, we're all praying for you. Your mom told us about the court situation. She said it's for your own protection. The sound of the band playing a cheerful jazz standard behind us felt obscene. What exactly did she tell you? Diane hesitated. That you've been struggling with your mental health. That you're not well. I found my mother 15 minutes later, standing by the bar with a glass of champagne, laughing with my Uncle Phil. I pulled her aside. What are you telling people about me? She looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes. I'm not telling anyone anything, Skylar. People ask because they care. I can't help it if they notice you're not yourself. I am myself. You're the one trying to convince everyone I'm not. She sipped her champagne. See? This is exactly what the evaluator was talking about. This hostility. This paranoia. I left the wedding before the cake was cut. I sat in my car in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, and I did not cry. I was done crying. The third betrayal was the one that nearly broke me. 6 months after the wedding, I was up for a promotion at work. Senior social media strategist. More responsibility, better pay, and a chance to lead campaigns that actually mattered. My boss, Clara, pulled me into her office on a Tuesday afternoon. The fluorescent light above her desk buzzed like an angry insect. Skylar, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. We received an anonymous call yesterday. Someone suggested that you might be unreliable due to personal legal troubles. They implied you're involved in a competency case. The floor tilted beneath my feet. Who called? They wouldn't leave a name, but they were very specific about the details. I told Clara the truth. All of it. She believed me, but the promotion went to someone else. I'm sorry, Clara said. My hands are tied. The board heard about the call, and they're nervous. Give it time. Time. That was always the answer everyone gave me. Give it time. Be patient. Wait it out. But time was exactly what my family was using against me. Every month the case dragged on was another month they could poison my reputation, isolate me from my relatives, and drain my savings with legal fees. That night, something shifted inside me. I stopped pleading. I stopped hoping they would suddenly develop a conscience. I stopped being sad and started being strategic. I bought a fireproof lockbox. I created encrypted cloud backups of every document I had. I started a spreadsheet logging every interaction with my family, date, time, what was said, who was present. I saved every email. I screenshotted every text message. I recorded every phone call, which was perfectly legal in my one-party consent state. I became the person my grandmother raised me to be. Not loud. Not dramatic. Meticulous. What they forgot was that my grandmother was a meticulous record keeper. And so was I. They were so focused on controlling the future, they never thought about the past they'd left behind. I had a file. A digital, encrypted file. And in it was every email, every text message from the last 10 years where they showed their true colors. They built their case on a lie. I was just waiting for the right moment to show the court what truth actually looked like. That file was my lifeline. Over the years, I had saved hundreds of emails and text messages between me and my family. Not because I was paranoid. Because I was a planner. Nana Ruth always said, write it down, Skylar. Memories fade, but ink doesn't. So I did. And what those messages revealed was devastating. There were emails from my father to my mother, forwarded to me accidentally years ago, discussing the trust as an asset we need to secure before she wastes it on that art school nonsense. There were text messages from Vanessa to my mother calling my career embarrassing and saying if we don't take control of that trust, she'll blow it on finger painting for homeless kids. But the most damning piece of evidence was an audio recording. 2 years into the case, my father called me on a Sunday evening. He didn't know I was recording. He thought he was talking to his defeated, exhausted daughter. Instead, he was talking to a woman who had learned to be very, very still. Look, Skylar, he said on that call, his voice loose from wine, the mental health angle is just a legal strategy. You know that, right? Nobody actually thinks you're crazy. But Vanessa says it's the strongest play we have, and she knows the law. Once we get control of the trust, we'll work something out. You'll still get an allowance. An allowance. From my own grandmother's money. I saved that recording in 3 separate locations. And I waited. The turning point came from an unexpected place. Nana Ruth's original estate lawyer, a man named Mr. Armas, had retired to a small town 2 hours outside the city. I remembered him from when I was young. He used to come to holiday dinners. He always brought butterscotch candies in his jacket pocket and slipped them to me under the table when my parents weren't looking. I found his number through an old address book of Nana Ruth's. When I called, his voice was older but still warm. "Skylar? Little Skylar? My goodness. How are you, dear?" I told him everything. The trust. The guardianship petition. The fabricated mental health concerns. The altered evaluator report. The 6 years of legal warfare. The line went quiet for a long time. I could hear him breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Harder. "That trust was straightforward, Skylar. Your grandmother made it simple on purpose. She didn't want anyone to complicate it. There is no ambiguity in those terms. You are the sole beneficiary with full control at age 25. There should never have been a co-trustee petition. This entire case is built on nothing." He paused. "I'm retired, but I know people. Good people. Let me make some calls." Mr. Armas connected me with an attorney named Janet Chin. She was sharp, methodical, and utterly unimpressed by my family's theatrics. Within a week of reviewing my case file, she identified 3 major procedural red flags, including the fact that the original psychological evaluation appeared to have been modified after submission. "Someone altered this report," Janet told me, holding up 2 versions side by side. "The language in the version submitted to the court is different from the original that Dr. Went kept in her own records. Key phrases were softened. Conclusions were changed. This isn't a discrepancy. This is tampering." Meanwhile, my family grew arrogant. 6 years of winning will do that. My father's lawyer sent over a final settlement offer, essentially demanding I accept supervised access to my own trust in exchange for dropping the guardianship petition. Janet called it insulting. We rejected it. My father's response came through Vanessa, who texted me directly. "Fine. We'll see this through to the end. You had your chance." I read that text and smiled. For the first time in 6 years, I actually smiled. Because that was exactly what I wanted them to say. The final hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in March. The courtroom smelled like floor polish and stale coffee. The fluorescent lights cast everything in a flat, clinical white. No warmth anywhere. My parents arrived in coordinated outfits, my mother in a navy dress, my father in a charcoal suit. Vanessa walked in behind them, her heels clicking on the tile floor like a metronome counting down. They looked confident. Polished. United. They looked like a family deeply concerned about their troubled daughter. Their lawyer, a tall man named Mr. Prescott, stood first. He summarized 6 years of filings with practiced ease. He painted a picture of a loving family desperate to protect a vulnerable young woman from her own poor judgment. He referenced the psychological evaluation. He referenced Tessa's letter. He referenced my erratic refusal to accept help. The judge, a woman named Judge Morales, listened with the weary patience of someone who had seen this case cross her desk too many times. She rubbed her temples. She looked like she wanted it to be over. Then Janet stood. "Your Honor, we move to enter new evidence into the record." She placed a thick folder on the table. "And we call the petitioner, Mr. Davis, back to the stand." My father's face changed. It was subtle. A flicker of something behind his eyes. Not fear exactly. Confusion. He hadn't expected this. He took the stand, and Janet approached him slowly. "Mr. Davis, do you recall sending an email to your wife on September 14th, 6 years ago, regarding your daughter's trust fund?" "I don't recall the specific email." Janet handed him a printout. "Let me refresh your memory. You wrote, and I quote, 'We need to secure this asset before she wastes it on that art school nonsense.' Vanessa says the mental health angle is our strongest play. Do you recall writing that?" The courtroom went very quiet. I could hear the ventilation system humming above us. My father stared at the paper. "That's taken out of context." "What context would make that statement appropriate, Mr. Davis?" He didn't answer. Janet pressed forward. "You also stated in a recorded phone call with your daughter, and I will play the relevant portion for the court with your permission, Your Honor, that the mental health concerns cited in your petition were, in your words, just a legal strategy." She played the recording. My father's wine-loosened voice filled the courtroom. The mental health angle is just a legal strategy. You know that, right? Nobody actually thinks you're crazy. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Vanessa's face went white. Mr. Prescott stood up. Your Honor, objection. The admissibility of this recording. It was recorded in a one-party consent state, Your Honor, Janet said calmly. It is fully admissible. We have certification of the recording's authenticity. Judge Morales waved Mr. Prescott down. Her expression had changed. The weariness was gone. In its place was something cold and focused. Continue, counselor. Janet then presented the two versions of Dr. Went's psychological evaluation. The original, obtained directly from Dr. Went's records with her cooperation, and the altered version that had been submitted to the court. She highlighted the changes. Phrases like, no significant concerns regarding capacity, had been changed to some concerns regarding independent financial management. Conclusions had been reversed. Someone altered this report before it was filed with this court, Your Honor, Janet said. The original report, which we have authenticated, found no basis for questioning my client's mental competency. The version presented 6 years ago was falsified. Judge Morales turned to my father. Mr. Davis, who is responsible for submitting this report to the court? My father looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked at her hands. Nobody spoke. Let me ask the question differently, the judge said. Are you aware that falsifying evidence submitted to a court is a criminal offense? The silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard. My father's composure finally broke. He stumbled through a non-answer, contradicting his earlier testimony, contradicting the petition itself. Mr. Prescott tried to intervene, but the damage was total. The facade my family had spent 6 years constructing didn't just crack. It disintegrated. Right there, under those harsh fluorescent lights, in that room that smelled like floor polish and stale coffee, the truth finally filled the space where their lies had been. Judge Morales dismissed the petition with prejudice. She didn't just rule in my favor. She reprimanded my parents from the bench. This court has been used as a weapon against your own daughter for 6 years, she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. You have wasted this court's time and resources. You have caused immeasurable harm to a competent, capable adult. I am referring this matter for potential investigation into evidence tampering. She awarded me full, uncontested control of my trust fund. She ordered my parents to pay my legal fees. Every penny. The gavel came down, and it was over. I walked out of that courtroom alone. Nobody followed me. Nobody congratulated me. And that was fine. The spring air hit my face the moment I stepped outside, and I just stood there on the courthouse steps, breathing. Not crying. Not celebrating. Just breathing. The weight I'd been carrying for 6 years was gone, and my body didn't quite know how to stand without it yet. My mother tried calling me that evening. Then my father. Then Vanessa sent a long text message full of phrases like, family is family, and we should put this behind us, and mistakes were made on both sides. On both sides. I read Vanessa's text once. Then I deleted it. I didn't respond to any of them. Not out of cruelty. But because I had spent 6 years listening to people who never once listened to me, and I was done having conversations that only went one direction. 2 weeks later, I filed the paperwork to establish the Ruth Avery Community Arts Foundation. I named it after my grandmother. The woman who left me more than money. She left me proof that someone in my family believed I was exactly who I was supposed to be. I rented a small studio space near downtown. It had tall windows and paint-stained hardwood floors, and it smelled like turpentine and possibility. The first class had 7 teenagers. By the end of the month, there were 22. For 6 years, my parents tried to define me with a lie. They called me unstable. They called me incapable. They twisted every quiet thing about me into evidence of weakness. In the end, all they did was write the story of their own downfall. My story was just beginning. If you've ever had your truth twisted and used against you by someone who is supposed to protect you, you know that deep hurt. Subscribe and share your experience with being misrepresented or gaslit in the comments. Click share to help this story reach others fighting to prove their own reality. Did this story hit home? Let me know by liking the video and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Click share to help this story find others who've felt the same way. Your support makes a huge difference.